Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Club. This is the place everyday real estate investors gather to share their best stories, biggest insights, and favorite tactics to grow a portfolio of cash flowing properties in today's market. Here's your host, Gabe Peterson.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. It is a sunny Friday here in Seattle, Washington. You guys, if you haven't been to Seattle in the summer, it is the best and only time that you should come. Beautiful up here. David Pupo is our guest today. He is an expert in creative financing. And so we're going to dive into that because it's one of my favorite topics to talk about. David, thank you very much for hopping on the show.
Gabe, my man, thank you so much for being able to invite me on here. I'm really excited to be able to share it with you and the audience today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I forgot to mention, David's from tripleoffer.com. So if you guys remember that URL, we'll remind you at the end of the episode. So if you like what David says, which I'm sure you will, check that website out. So David, I told you before we got on here, we like to start with stories. So why don't you take us back to the beginning of your story? How'd you get started in real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. Originally, I grew up in a family that actually had a lot of people that were in different parts of real estate growing up. My goal growing up was always actually to be a baseball player. And I actually followed that vividly for a lot. And for anybody who knows kind of like the Sun Belt states, we play sports 365, right? There's no winter, right? So we had spring ball, fall ball, summer ball, winter ball, whatever you want to call it. So for a long time growing up, you know, I was only thinking that I was going to be trying to get into baseball as a professional player for a very long time. Actually, I was a pitcher, and I started actually having really bad rotator cuff issues when I was getting into that 18 years old. Of course, perfect time when you're starting to get scholarship offers and stuff like that. I had to sit out half of my senior year from pitching because of the issues that were starting to go on with my shoulder. Luckily enough, I was at least smart enough, and I had a single mom who was making sure that I was still getting my education when I was trying to become this quote unquote baseball star, right? And you know, she was always saying, thankfully my mom is still around and she's doing fantastic, but she was a single mom for me growing up. And she was my number one fan, number one supporter. And she always told me, listen, at one point, this might not come into fruition. Like, you need to think about other things, right? And thankfully enough, I had somewhat of an ego, but not enough of an ego to just let my academics go to waste. So luckily enough, I got that news from a doctor that my rotator was at that point where I was going to need surgery, or I had to just pretty much stop playing baseball. It was one or the other. And at that time, I just made that reflective decision. You know what? Maybe I'm at that point with baseball where I'm done with it. So luckily enough, I was able to get into a couple of colleges, and one of them was University of Central Florida. And I went up here to Orlando, and that's where I went to UCF. Like I mentioned earlier, I had family that was in real estate, but everybody was doing something different. Some people in my family were loan officers. My mom actually, prior to the recession, owned a title company, and then that wiped her out. And then my aunt was a really, really great real estate agent, but nobody was quite in the investment world. So I didn't know about that world until a little bit later on. I knew I always wanted investments. I always liked investments. Started being able to do like the Academy of Finance at school. And so like that was like a little club that we had at high school where we started our first mutual funds or first ETFs or started indexes. And it was
high
fun.
School you started these things?
Yeah.
That's
fun. I mean, we were kids, right? The Academy of Finance, but it wasn't a lot of money we're talking about. They helped us out with understanding the strategies about it, and then being able to set up an account where you only put like 10 to 50, whatever kind of money you want to put into it.
Your lawn mowing money.
Man, that was it's funny. I'll get into that story a little bit later for the lawn mowing money. That's funny as heck. But so getting out of college, like I said, I was trying to get worlds of investments, had 4 internships, and nothing quite fit what I wanted. So I took a sales gig right out of college, and I can't tell you how much I hated that job. And it's not because of what the sales were about, it was really actually cool. We used to actually work with like mechanical and electrical engineers for a lot of defensive contractors here in Orlando. But I just felt like a cog in the wheel.
Yeah.
I was putting in the craziest hours, not getting the crazy amount of return on it. And I met my, I guess, college sweetheart. I met my college sweetheart. We graduated together, stayed here in Orlando, and we were at a point of breaking up. Like when I would get home, I was just a vegetable. I was just, I was annoyed. I was just shutting down. We didn't have conversations a whole bunch, and I'd just go to sleep, repeat it. And I just felt like I was in this cycle, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. So I stumbled finally upon Bigger Pockets, and that's where everything changed. I got to have conversations about understanding investments, and then the world that a lot of my family was about, of course, real estate. And so I started going to a couple of the local real estate investment clubs. And man, that's when I was like, oh my God, there's like people that do this full time. I didn't know. I mean, you just listen to Bigger Pockets sometimes, and you're like, oh yeah, that guy just stumbled into it. Good for him, whatnot, right?
Everybody says they stumble into it.
Yeah, exactly. So the RIAs start making a really big emphasis on what I'm doing after work. At that time, I'm still working that job. And I just remember I was just so sick and tired of being sick and tired. I looked at my girlfriend, now wife, and I go, hey, I think I'm going to jump in and do this. I've given this a lot of time, a lot of thought. And what's the worst that happens? I save up 3 months of expenses. And if it doesn't work, then, whatever. I go right back into another sales gig. But something had to change. Otherwise, I'm going to stay in this job. I'm going to hate it. And we're probably going to break up. And she could see that. Like that was kind of where we were at. Right. So she was very, very supportive of me jumping into it. That was in 2016. I started with like a wholesaling brokerage here in Orlando. And I mean, I've never updated my resume since then.
Nice, man. I love your story, and I connect with it a lot, especially the corporate grind. I did the same thing. I was in corporate. I was in it for 7 years before I actually made the switch. So totally get what you're saying. If you got that bug, if you need to create something on your own, you need to make that leap. It's scary, but you got to do it. And I like at the beginning of your story how you talked about your mom having the wisdom, which is always so true. My mom, she saw who I was, and she was just like, you got to go do it. And so love to hear that. It's interesting that you said wholesaling brokerage. I've never heard those two before. Usually wholesaling, it's just, an investor out there doing marketing, getting properties under contract, and then assigning those contracts. Why you started with a brokerage, and did they only do wholesaling, or why did you put those two words together?
Yeah. So what was a very big thing when I was still in 2016, so that's when I first started, being able to get inventory was still not that big of an issue. It was making the turn where inventory was shorting, but places like Central Florida, South Florida just got pummeled so hard by the recession that it took so long to get out of it. So the MLS was still riddled with REOs, short sales. So you could have a thriving wholesaling business that just worked off of MLS, short sale, and REOs. And that's what this company primarily did.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So once you made that transition, you decided, I have this 3 months of cash, runway. I need to make this jump. You jumped into the wholesaling brokerage. How did the story go from there? It sounds like now you guys are doing a lot of flips. And you are doing a lot of creative financing. Once you jumped into the wholesaling brokerage, what was the next step for you?
Right. So I was with the wholesaling brokerage for roughly a year and a half. That was actually that was a great learning experience, actually. For the audience, REOs are real estate owned properties. So those are foreclosures. And then for people who don't know what like a short sale is somebody can't simply like afford their property anymore. So what they do is they come to essentially like a settlement with the bank. The bank essentially says, okay, we will forgive you of essentially some of this debt here, but we got to take over possession. It doesn't ding you as much as like saying a foreclosure does, but that was still a very big market. So there were still really big pockets of Orlando that had a lot of them. So with that brokerage, we were getting a lot of those. You start off in dispositions. So dispositions for the audience are people that are part of the team that their only responsibility is selling the inventory that the company has, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the property is, go find the buyer for it. If you don't have a list of buyers that are buying in that area, you got to go find the new buyers for it, right? So a really big strategy at that time for me was really just bandit signs. This is where hustle was just every day, all day, every day hustle stuff, right?
That's crazy.
I was putting out,
I tried bandit signs here in Seattle. When I first got started in 2014, I tried bandit signs and I got diddly squat. Like I didn't get a single call. And also I noticed that like I would put a bandit sign at X, wherever it was. And then I'd drive by the next week and it'd be gone. And they just got taken down like left and right.
Yeah. I mean, I had it in my mind 48 to 72 hours. That's okay. The time life of a bandit sign to me. So if I put them out like Friday, I think by Monday or Tuesday, I have to probably go like put out new bandit signs in that same area. So yeah, bandit signs were a very big thing. It was a very big hustle culture, right? That was what I enjoyed though, right? I was around like-minded people who liked doing this. And since I didn't have a buyer's list starting off, I had to go create one, right? Going back to those RIAs, I was at every single real estate investment meeting that I knew about in Central Florida. And then doing the bandit signs where I was putting out, I mean, I had the routine down pat. I would be getting into the brokerage's office. They even gave me a key because of like, I wanted to get there at 8:00 and I would write out all my bandit signs. And then for the morning, I drive all to the different locations of where the properties were. And I'd spray like a 1 mile radius around it. And then in the afternoon, I'm setting appointments to get people into those houses and sell them.
Wow, that's crazy. That's a grind right there. And this is all wholesaling. You were just putting these signs out.
All wholesaling.
Getting them under contract.
I was still working for the brokerage. Yeah. I was still working for the brokerage.
And so I know, I love your story. We keep this at a 20-minute podcast, but I want to keep going down that hole, but I need to know about the creative financing because, you mentioned, your website is tripleoffer.com. And that really connected with me because the first course that I took was always talking about the 3-offer method. And so I'm sure this came into play. At what point did you kind of realize that seller financing was a good strategy to use in single family?
Yeah. Fast forward, I'm out of that brokerage, started my own company. It's called Florida House Buyers. And the triple offer method starts making its way really right after COVID. Once the Fed and the government all were able to start making sure that these 2, 3, 4 were shaking on 5, those kind of interest rates for these properties, a new asset class has now been created where if we see it in our lifetime, awesome. If we see it in our lifetime, that probably means something really bad is happening. So let me take that back, right? But we a lot of people you're hearing saying that this isn't going to be something that makes sense anymore, right? It was a unicorn to be able to get interest rates at these kind of prices and so long story short, with being able to start doing the triple offer, we start having conversations with people where the interest rates are low, the mortgage payments are low, but in a lot of spots, especially here in Florida, the rent is going up like crazy. So now you have been able to create a margin between what the mortgage is. Hopefully, we're talking full principal, interest, taxes, insurance, so PITI, at like, let's just say that $1,200. But now we have now seen that the rent in those areas that were maybe $1,500 have now gone up to $1,800 to $2,000 in some of them. So now monthly cash flow is now a huge consideration for it. For a long time, it was kind of close, but not quite there. And then from the subject twos, we got into 100% seller financing deals too. And I think that the loose statistic is about 1 in every 3 houses in America is owned free and clear, right? And
Wow, I
I
did
have
not know that
noticed
actually.
that,
That's interesting.
yeah, yeah. And so there's a lot of properties out there where the people are sitting on this kind of equity, and just because somebody hasn't presented it to them, they've never understood that 100% of equity can be something that pays them monthly. And if they even want, they can put interest on it, but they can get more for their actual price now that they get monthly payments for it. This has been a really big strategy for people that don't want to be landlords anymore. Everybody's told them to be a landlord. Now they've been a landlord for a while. They have these tenants that just destroy the property, or then they move and then they're like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. And I go, well, perfect. The whole point of you getting property, right? So this is kind of the pitch to the people that are the absentee investors. Well, the whole point of you getting into this, Gabe, was to be somebody getting passive income, right? That was the whole point of you buying a rental property. And more times than not, they're like, yeah, absolutely. That's what I wanted from this. I'm like, well, now here's your real opportunity. I go, how many times does Wells Fargo get a call about a broken toilet? How many times does Wells Fargo get a call about the eviction? How many times as well? And I just go down the list, and after that point, they understand that the bank doesn't get calls about the day-to-day nuances of a house. Right.
That's actually, I've never heard of that
Mhm.
framing with seller financing when you're selling seller financing to a seller. I've never heard of framing it as the bank, which
Yeah.
they are. I mean, they are the bank, but framing it as, think of Wells Fargo. They have the biggest buildings. The banks always have the biggest buildings in the commercial
Mhm.
areas. They always have the nicest properties. And so framing it like, hey, you want to be this. Everybody wants to be the bank. So this is how you can do it. You are now the bank when you create a seller finance note.
Yeah. Yeah. When you lead them down that road, it comes to a revelation. They're like, oh, wow, you're right.
Before we continue on with today's guest, I want to tell you guys about a community I'm launching on School to help investors like yourself grow your own portfolio. In this community, you'll get access to all the docs I use, all the systems I've built, everything I've used to grow my own portfolio, as well as instructions and guidance on how to get out there and find great deals, how to finance those deals, and then how to manage them for great returns. Since we're just launching it, the price will be set at a measly $20 per month, and whatever price you join at is the price you'll have for life. We will be increasing the price as the group grows, so if you're at all interested in growing your portfolio along other investors, now is the time to join. I will put the link somewhere in the bio or on our podcast website at therealestateinvestingclub.com, so if you are interested, head on over there. With that said, let's get back to the podcast.
Yep. So let's take one step back because we kind of skipped over exactly what the triple offer method is
Sure.
and what the 3 offers are and why you do that. So take us to the overview, from the basics. What is the triple offer? What are the 3 offers you make, and why does it work?
Absolutely. The triple offer is just simply a sales tactic that is a tiered structure. Tiered structure meaning our first offer is typically going to be our lowest offer, right? That's usually going to be like our wholesale cash as is. If Gabe, you, the owner of the property, don't want to deal with anything, you want a lump sum, you want it in 30 days, and you just want to be done with it, and your property is in really bad shape, this is going to be a really good one. But what it's used for the other people coming up later, it's really great for an anchoring approach.
Yep.
Right. I have now gotten their expectations down here. So when I bring it back up, now this is going to seem like a better value. Right.
Yep. And
right
real quick,
now,
when you calculate that first offer, so the first offer, it's all cash, it's going to be your lowest. How are you calculating that? Are you doing 70% minus repairs? How are you coming to that offer?
Right. So it really depends on the location of the property, right? That 0.7 can sometimes go to 0.75, depending on how hot the area is, or it might go back the other way to 0.65 or 0.6, just depending on what I think the temperature is in that surrounding area.
Yep. That makes sense. All right. So the first one's cash. Second two, what are they?
The second one has now been a pretty established one with the Novation offer. A Novation offer has really become a really great candidate for a second slash, I call it the steering wheel offer. It's priced closer to tier one. So it's closer to cash, because what I ultimately really want is the third. Why I want them to choose door three. I want them to choose seller financing. But the second one is that Novation offer. Novations are brought into fruition when the property doesn't really need a whole bunch of work, maybe a couple things here and there. But that offer is typically like 0.75 to like 0.85. 0.85 is when we're really being able to understand here, like the property really doesn't need much, but the people just don't want to deal with an agent.
Yep, that makes sense. And I've heard Novation so many times. Even one of my partners, so I'm on the commercial side. I don't deal a lot with single family, but one of my partners loves Novation, and I've asked him before, don't get it. What is Novations?
A Novation is simply a way of replacing yourself in a contract. What has been one of the biggest limiting factors of wholesaling is that, like, you can't assign to somebody that is trying to buy a house with a mortgage, right?
Okay.
That's an assignment fee, and most mortgage companies don't allow assignment fees to be recorded.
Right.
But a Novation is a great loophole where you can be able to now sell a property to Jane and Joe that have a conventional mortgage.
Okay. So dig a little bit deeper. How does it work? So generally you just do an assignment. So if I got, property A from Joe Smith under contract for 100,000 and I wanted to assign it for 110,000, usually I get it under contract and I have an assignment agreement, write that up, sign that with another buyer. And then we close that way. How is it different from the Novations? Do you have a separate type of contract in place?
100%. So I will walk it. I'll walk you through it really quickly with like a quick story. So Gabe, you're my seller, right? Gabe, I'm bringing in the second offer. Not many properties really qualify for this second offer, but I think yours does. It seems like it's in decent shape. However, there are a couple things with it that might limit it to being a full retail priced offer. However, I think I have a network of buyers for you for this property. So if you're comfortable with being able to net a certain amount, like let's say like, I don't know, $200,000 for your property or something like that, I can be able to get you the right buyer for this property. And now there's different paperwork that is used. It's not simply a cash as is like front side contract that you use like with a wholesale fee. There's something called a power of attorney, a limited power of attorney, or attorney in fact. Those are documents that allow you to be able to make decisions on the seller's behalf. Yes,
interesting.
It is real and it is legal. I've had it underwritten by several title companies.
Okay, interesting. And so then
from there, Gabe, I'm letting you know that Jane and John might want to buy your house. And now I can connect you two, and simply I get paid off of whatever the margin is. I am taking all the expenses out of what my cut is. So I'm making sure, Gabe, you walk away with $200,000. Is that fair? You said that you wanted 190 and I could get you 200 walking away money. Is that fine?
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, obviously they would say, yeah, that sounds great. I don't really care how you do it. Just get me the money.
Yeah. The only stipulation is now you're in the world of conventional. So like, you're not doing this in 30 days. Like time has to not be as big of a factor for that person. We're talking 60 to 90 days more times than not. So that's the second offer, right? So then we're going into where my promised land is, right? That is my seller financing stuff, right? So Gabe, we've gone through now the cash offer. We've gone through our concierge offer where we're a little bit higher. What if I'm able to actually get you the full asking price that you want? Are you willing to meet me if I can get you a payment upfront and payments over time?
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So that's the introduction to the creative financing.
Yeah. And that's the one. I mean, I do that in commercial too. I love that offer. It is beneficial both from the buyer and the seller. Like you said, if you're the seller, you get money over time, and everybody wants to be the bank. So if you can even do it interest only. I love interest only offers where you say, hey, we'll give you 6% interest, interest only payments, and over X amount of years. And that really allows you to cash flow over those years. So I love that third one too. And cool. I appreciate the overview of the three offer letter is what I used to call it. That's what I learned back in 2014. And if anybody out there is just getting started, I would highly recommend doing the three offer letter. It is it also uses psychology, as I've heard, because
100%.
people, if they get one option, then they tend to say no, yes or no. It's a binary. But if they get multiple options, three options, then it's really deciding which of the two that you want. It's not a yes or a no. It's do I want a 1, 2, 3, A, B, C.
Yeah. In our coaching program, we also shorten that analysis paralysis for our newer clients, right? They probably get into a world where they think that, they have to be creative finance experts. So we teach them how to really be able to quickly assess properties so they could be able to really, even if they were on the same phone call, make those three offers if they felt that aggressive, or within very short time frame of how to make sure that a property can be pitched in three different ways, because you're 100% right. It's a psychology factor there where if you're taking that time, that person is going to really appreciate that you took that time. And more times than not, heck, I'm behind door 1, 2, and 3 at the end of the day.
Yeah,
whatever decision that they pick, right, I win. And so I'm completely fine with either any of the three.
Yep, absolutely. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. It is time to jump into the quick question round. Are you ready?
Let's get it.
Let's do it. Starts with books or any form of education. I need 2 recommendations. Give me one for real estate and then one for general life wisdom.
Yeah, for real estate, I'll go with general life actually first. I think I've suffered from ADHD for a lot of my life. So a book that's had a lot of impact in my life is being able to understand a book like The Compound Effect, right? So that's by a gentleman by the name of Darren Hardy. And the compound effect is making sure you understand how consistent effort and consistent focus or consistent distractions, your compound effect can go in a positive or a negative direction. And I thought, we hear about that kind of philosophy a lot, but the book does a really great job and really just really going into it. In terms of education for real estate, it's really funny, man, because I feel like I take a lot of courses to be able to learn from real estate, but I don't actually read a lot of books on real estate. So I've taken
it doesn't have to be
courses.
A book. Yeah, just even a course. Your favorite form of education for real estate?
Yeah. So I would go with Pace Morby has a really great course called Sub 2. He does a lot for his students. So I've learned a lot of my different and deeper strategies through Pace. So the Sub 2 community has been a really great one for a lot of people.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard good things about Pace Morby too. All right, moving on. This next question is for your younger self. So let's go back to the David who was still playing baseball, still thought he was going to go pro before that shoulder injury. Go back to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
It's funny. I've thought about this one a lot because now I'm starting to mentor and coach. I wouldn't call them kids, but they're 23, 24. So it's kind
early
of funny.
Adults.
I have that. Yeah, I have that kind of reflection often. And the same thing that was 18-year-old David Pupo has been 31, 32-year-old David Pupo too. It's manage your distractions. It is so easy in this world to get distracted. And many times distractions can come as a disguise and they seem like opportunities. There's been, I think I'd be much further off in not only my personal life, but also my professional life with not understanding distractions can be disguised. And we always think that they're opportunities. And then you realize a year back, I could have avoided a lot of this, right?
Yeah. I feel like that is a really good piece of wisdom that only comes with time. Because you're 100% right. And it's so easy in real estate too, to kind of get the shiny object syndrome where you
Yeah.
feel like you're going after an opportunity, but really you're diluting and dispersing your focus. Because if you try all the different strategies, if you try to go, buy self-storage facilities, buy mobile home parks, buy flip single families, do wholesales, all this stuff, you really can't hone in on one strategy and really become an expert in it. And so I feel like that's a really good piece of advice for your younger self, and I would probably do the same for myself. So love that. Moving us on to the next question. This is about your business. The first 3 positions we hire form the foundation of our business. So if you could go back in time, what were the first 3 positions you hired for, and would you do it differently if you did it again today?
Yeah, I would do it differently because I don't think I hired an executive assistant. I had a very limiting belief in myself that did I ever need an executive assistant? And once I got one, I was like, way to go, man, your ego got in the way. Right. Because I would say that you don't realize how much you do on a day in, day out that could be really delegated out to other people. So I would say that would be one of my first hires really quickly. The mistake I see a lot of people actually make is they delegate stuff that they're really strong in first, as opposed to stuff that they're very weak in. I've seen it that if somebody was really good at closing deals, let's say closing with sellers, that they're looking for people that are really good at closing sellers, as opposed to, well, maybe let's find out where some of the other gaps are and we can fill those in first, right? So I think it's very important for that person, whoever that they are, like, do a reflection on what you feel like are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, right? Do you like being the person on the phone? Do you like being the person that's doing the systems and the operations? Like, understand that, because I don't think everybody should have the same 1, 2, 3, but I do believe that like an exec assistant could help out with almost any of them.
Yeah, for sure. If I could give myself one suggestion to hire, get a VA, executive assistant, whatever you want to call it. They really help you out. And it's amazing once you do get one and you can start, passing things off of your plate, you realize like, holy crap, I was spending a lot of time doing these things.
It's so true. I mean, for the longest time, I've had a pretty much virtual team. It's just as of recent, actually, that we started hiring in-house closers.
Oh, wow.
We've had a very virtual team for roughly about a year and a half.
Nice.
Since February of last year.
Nice. Yeah, for real estate, you really, virtual works well. It's well suited for that, and unless you're talking about on-site management, but the back end can definitely be virtual 100%.
Yeah.
All right, next question is about the U.S. It's a big place, a lot of opportunity out there. Give me the single metro you're most excited about investing in today.
Yeah, so it's funny that you bring it up like that, right? Because with my virtual model, I've primarily targeted the Southeast of America. I like certainly a little bit more landlord friendly states, but what I'm doing now is I'm actually going to be pulling back some of the reins on doing the Southeast, and I'm going to focus primarily here in my state of Florida. I do believe that there is just still so much opportunity here. And I love being able to invest in the areas that I can still do what we call, face-to-face appointments, right? Belly to belly. I like being able to do that. And I can teach closers very well how to succeed very quickly in that too. Yep. So I would say that if I'm going to be saying I'm bullish, I'm going to say I'm bullish for a majority of Florida.
Nice. Yeah. Florida's a good market. I mean, it's been crushing it for a long time now. And especially like there's specific markets within Florida that are just doing real well. All right, moving us on to the next question. This is about marketing. This is a good question for you. It all starts with finding the deal. So what's your favorite way to generate leads?
Yeah. So this is another thing that I like to be able to take reflection on, right? Because all marketing is, especially when you're real estate investing, can you have more time to leverage or do you have more money to leverage? If money is no object, I would tell you, go for stuff that if you want to become like your very local dominant brand, like go to stuff to do radio and TV, I would say then like, your pay per click or billboards, those are all going to be very great local ways to get brand recognition.
Radio
However,
and
if you're
TV,
trying to do,
actually, I've never heard someone recommend radio and TV. That's it's interesting that you focus on that one.
Yeah, well, it's different, right? Because here in Florida, we have a more senior citizens, and they still watch a lot of TV, and a lot of those people, guess what, have properties that have a lot of equity in them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So if you're doing that, if you're doing more virtual, I've had really great success with PPC and cold calling when it comes to virtual.
Yeah, and PPC can definitely get expensive. I feel like cold calling is it's the tried and true. It works. So if you do it, just pick it up, dial that phone. All right. Next question is about luck. It all comes with the effort that you put into it, but sometimes when you have luck on your side, things really do start to boon up and push you along. So if you could point to one moment in your real estate career, what was your luckiest moment in real estate?
My luckiest moment in real estate. Man, that's a good question. Because the thing is with wholesaling that we get so many opportunities that come past us that sometimes I don't really quite call it luck. But I'd say that sometimes we get certainly an opportunity to manifest what we want. Like when I start putting in like a multifamily list, right? Even though I like to wholesale some of them, I like to keep some of them too, right? So I'd say that when we get some opportunities that are very seller finance oriented or multifamily oriented, I certainly feel a lot luckier because I do know that they're very coveted, right? A seller financing deal with like 2 or 3%, or that we create the terms, or on the other side, being able to buy a multifamily. Honestly, a lot of it is just being very grateful for things being presented and just hopefully you have the knowledge on how to execute it.
Yep, absolutely. All right, moving along. This is the second to last question, and this is about mentors. None of us are islands. We all stand on the shoulders of giants. So who is one mentor who has contributed significantly to your career today? Yeah.
So one of the guys, I didn't mention who I listened to on Bigger Pockets, is now still my mentor to this day, and that's Tom Kroll. Tom Kroll ran Wholesaling Inc., and he's based out of Port St. Lucie. And when I was really, really trying to get my own business going, I would literally go drive. Like I would tell Tom, like, I only want 30 minutes of your time, and that's like 2.5 hours away. I would go sit down with him, and Tom's still been a great mentor of mine still to this day. That was back in 2018. So I'd say that Tom has been a really great mentor of mine within the real estate investment community. He's given me great opportunities and connections for sure.
Right on. Well, shout out to Tom. Thanks for helping David get to where he is today. And that leads us to the last question. You've given us a lot to think about. I'm sure people want to reach out. Tell people about tripleoffer.com, and then what is the best way for people to reach out and get in contact with you?
Yeah. Here's my pitch, guys. When it comes to being able to get a seller to get to a commitment, our triple offer is a fantastic way to be able to do that. And we are helping people get results. Right? I can't tell you how many times people who are new real estate investors are just looking at things in a clueless way. They look at it I'm only making cash offers, or I'm making these creative financing offers that don't make sense. And what we've been able to do is streamline the opportunity. It does not matter where you live in this country. It matters about the conversations that you're having with these sellers and how you can get results through a coach and through the right materials the quickest. And that's what we've been able to start doing with Triple Offer. It was something I had a limited belief on, but then I started getting consistent success from it. And then we started getting results for students with it. So then I was like, you know what? I need to let the world know that this is something that can help them out. So tripleoffer.com, it's that simple. You can find me on all social medias like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. My handles under TikTok and Instagram are at Dollars with David. And then Facebook is just David Pupo.
All right, perfect. Well, I will put those links in the show notes. So if y'all want to reach out to David, get involved with the Triple Offer mentorship program, go ahead and click the little more in the description. It'll pull down the full description, and in there you can find those links. All right, man. Well, that wraps it up. Thank you very much for hopping on the show.
Hey, Gabe, thank you so much for being able to give me the opportunity. Hopefully your audience got a whole bunch out of this, and I don't mind being able to provide you some free documentation that can help them out, like maybe like a overcoming obstacles worksheet. It's one of the first things that I teach our closers and our lead managers, because I want to make sure our people are playing chess when other people are playing checkers.
There you go, man. I love it. All right. Well, again, thank you. And if for everybody who's here with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions whatsoever, reach out to me, Gabe at therealestateinvestingclub.com. And if you guys want to support the show, all we ask is you give us a like, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. All right, before I officially sign off, I have a quick announcement to make. If you're interested in becoming a passive investor in one of my deals, my own company, Kaizen Properties, is looking for capital partners for our upcoming projects. We invest in what are known as recession-resistant assets, mainly self-storage facilities, mobile home and RV parks, and industrial properties. If you're interested in investing and would like to learn a little bit more about my company, our investing criteria, and some of the previous projects we've done, go to the Real Estate Investing Club podcast at therealestateinvestingclub.com and scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page. Click on the Invest With Us button. That'll pop up the investor form. Fill that out, and we will reach back out to you as soon as we can. Or if you prefer a little bit more of a personal touch, you can reach out to me at Gabe at therealestateinvestingclub.com. So really, that is it. Again, it was a pleasure hanging out with you guys during this episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.